We're now at the beginning of a new period in European history, and beginnings in history, as in romance, as in life, are really important. What I argue is that there is a distinct period which I call the post-wall period, which goes from the fall of the Berlin Wall on the 9th of November 1989 to the 24th of February 2022, the beginning of the full-scale war in Ukraine. The whole liberal international order we lived with for 40 years was shaped in a few years after 1945. The few years after 1989 shaped the European order for the next 30 years. So what we do now is incredibly important because it will shape the European order for decades to come.
Timothy Garton Ash is een van de meest gerenommeerde Europa-kenners met bijzondere aandacht voor Oost-Europa. Decennia lang al reist hij het hele continent af. De laatste tijd met een duidelijke boodschap. Europa moet beginnen tonen wat het waard is.
It's not just that there's a major war in Europe, which at the moment Russia is winning, despite our involvement. It's also that half the world still is on good terms with Russia and is not on our side and doesn't agree with us. And most of the world think this is a war between Russia and the West.
Not just Ukraine.
Not Russia and Ukraine. So that our credibility as the West, as Europe, is at stake. I'm really worried at the confusion between European leaders, and where we had a unity in Europe, it's now evaporating because we have no strategic clarity.
Zo deed de Franse president Macron vorige week plots een opvallende uitspraak.
Il n'y a pas de consensus aujourd'hui pour envoyer de manière officielle, assumée et endossée des troupes au sol, mais en dynamique, rien ne doit être exclu.
Westerse grondtroepen in Oekraïne. De Duitse kanselier Scholz was er snel met een antwoord.
Nämlich, dass es keine Bodentruppen, keine Soldaten auf ukrainischem Boden geben wird.
Deur dicht voor Macron.
What he was trying to say was right, which is we have to put uncertainty into the mind of Vladimir Putin. But the way the thought was expressed was obviously clumsy because there is total agreement across NATO that we're not going to put boots on the ground.
Duitsland laat ook graag doorschijnen dat Frankrijk relatief weinig inspanningen levert om Oekraïne te steunen. Maar Scholz draalt zelf ook, bij het sturen van Duitse Taurus-raketten bijvoorbeeld, die cruciaal kunnen zijn voor Oekraïne.
There is a huge distance that we could and should travel in supporting Ukraine, which is still well short of actually participating in the war. And I think it's quite wrong of Olaf Scholz, quite wrong, to suggest that if Germany sent Taurus missiles, which are pretty much the kind of missiles the British and the French and the Americans have already sent, that would be participating in a war. It's painful to observe because Putin, if he wins in Ukraine, will not stop there. They are saying this very clearly. I don't think it's next stop attacking NATO directly. I think next stop is something like Moldova. But Moldova is a candidate for EU membership. It's part of our family. And so we might then have another war on our hands.
Met de mogelijkheid dat de oorlog in Oekraïne verder uitbreidt op Europees grondgebied is het des te zorgwekkender dat we net op dit moment onze ruggensteun uit het Westen dreigen te verliezen.
For 80 years we've depended on the United States for our defense. If Donald Trump becomes the next president of the United States, all bets are off and we can't. So whether we like it or not, we have to do more for our defense.
De naam is gevallen. Na vandaag, Super Tuesday, zal Donald Trump zo goed als zeker zijn van de republikeinse nominatie als presidentskandidaat. En afgaande op peilingen vandaag is er een goede kans dat hij het in november haalt van huidig president Joe Biden.
Putin and Trump. The combination of these two things. Putin advancing from the east and Donald Trump threatening to withdraw from the west If that doesn't wake us up, what will?